Well, I'm happy to participate today. I hope that you're having a terrific day and that over the course of the next 40 or 50 minutes, we can have a great little conversation. Normally, when I do this, I sit in a room with a group of students and we have a conversation back and forth where they ask me a question and I give an answer. And so I'm going to pretend like you're asking questions and I'm answering those, so that it's more of an informal presentation rather than me giving a lecture or long talk. Before I get started, though, I want to tell you that I have great respect and admiration for the program director, Johnny O. He is a terrific leader, and I hope that you take the time to learn as much as you can from him. He's got the ability to balance his life, to accomplish great things, to make other people feel good, to listen, just kind of a lot of the traits that you would expect to find in a great leader. So I hope that you look for little things from him as you go through this program. Anyway, well, here we are. I've been asked to speak for a little bit about leadership. And as I mentioned, I'm going to try to make this kind of as an informal or a casual conversation rather than a written speech. So let me start out with perhaps a first question, and that is a question about empowering people to be leaders and role models. And before I answer that question, let's ask what a leader is and what a role model is. And you probably know that, but it's helpful to me to describe those because they're different. So a leader is a person, in my mind, who motivates people to want to follow her or to follow him. So a leader is not someone who accomplishes great things. A leader is a person who motivates others to follow, and together they accomplish great things. Because a leader requires other people to be part of what you're doing. If I'm going to lead you, then you need to follow. Sometimes we see somebody doing great things, but nobody is following. And that's not a leader. That's just somebody that works hard. So a leader is a person that inspires and motivates others to follow, and together they do wonderful things together. A role model is a little different than that. A role model is someone who inspires you to want to be like that person. So if I'm a great role model, then you would want to become like me. I would have those character traits. I would do the kinds of things that you also wanted to do, and you tried to follow me as a person. So if I can play that out just a teeny bit, I would see a leader as someone who motivates you to want to go with the leader to accomplish good things, to help others and whatever that might be. And a role model is someone who motivates you to want to become like the leader, to gain the character traits that the leader has. So I think those are two very different things, even though they're related. Leadership is one of those things that's hard to really talk about because it's something that is personal to every individual. Just like everyone's personality is different, leadership looks a little bit different in every person who becomes a leader, because we take advantage of our strengths and try to overcome our weaknesses. But one leader might be a great leader because that person is charismatic. By charismatic, I mean they look good, they talk great, they're inspiring. Another person might be a leader because they're very quiet and humble and hardworking, and people are inspired by that. So you kind of have to look at leadership as being, what kind of leader do you want to be, and how can you take advantage of your best qualities to inspire others to follow with you. And I know that you're studying to become teachers, and there's lots and lots of kinds of teachers out there. I look at my teachers over the years, and many of them inspired me to be better, like being a role model, and many of them inspired me to go out and accomplish good things, like a great leader. But most of these teachers were very different from each other. They weren't all the same. So there isn't a recipe to becoming a great leader or a great role model. I think that it's more just trying to become your very best self. If I think of the best way to become a leader, the kinds of things that I would suggest you do, there's a list of those things, and let's just talk through a few. And while we do that, let's just provide some examples of challenges that leaders might have. So let's see. One example of leadership, and I'm looking at a series of questions that I've got prepared here that I'm going to jump around in a little bit. What is a difficult decision that I had to make as a leader? Well, there are several of those examples. Let me give you one. For a while, I was the president of a college. This was a 2-year college that was like the first 2 years of university and also had a lot of technical programs. Programs that taught people how to get skills and go out to work. And at this school that was called Snow College, there was a particular time when we had to cut our budgets and really focus on our resources and make sure that what we were spending was doing good. So as I started looking at all of our programs, I realized that not all of the programs were being successful. And the legislature, the government office that was giving us money, wanted to make sure that the money they were spending was useful, that it was doing a great purpose, you know. And as I talked to some of these people about their programs that I was responsible for, because I was the president of the school and they were teachers in the school. One of them, for example, was a commercial art program. Another one was an auto collision program. This is a program, if you crash your car, they fix your car. Another one was an auto mechanics program that teaches people how to become mechanics, to repair cars and those kinds of things. And some were construction management, how to build houses. So, culinary arts, how to become a chef in a professional kitchen. So there's a whole list of these programs. And when I looked at the programs, for example, one of them was a program about commercial art. And we discovered that no students who had graduated from the commercial art program had found a job in art. And the idea of this program was that we needed to get students into jobs. But the teacher wasn't particularly concerned about that. They were just teaching art and not worried about the outcomes, not worried about whether the student would get a job. And so after spending a lot of time talking with the teachers about what they were doing and giving them a chance to show me the outcomes of their program, that people had actually been getting jobs, they concluded that there were no students getting jobs. They agreed with me that nobody was getting a job. Well, that puts me in an interesting position because I need to do one of two things. One, help them become successful, or I need to close the program and move the money to another program that would become successful. And I want to visit about both of those pieces as it comes to leadership. And the first thing that I want to say is that I believe that leaders have as their first responsibility to help the people that they are leading be successful. I think that's the number one job. If I spend all of my time working very, very hard, I can only accomplish so much. But if I help the people that work for me and with me become more successful, then we can accomplish a lot more. So one of my main goals as a leader, and I think this is one of the key things for us to remember, is that a leader's first responsibility is to help the people the leader leads become successful. So my job is to help you. And we spend all the time that we can doing that. And we'll talk maybe more a little bit about that, but that's the first job. So why is it that you're having a hard time? Let's say, for example, that you become the head of a school and you have a lot of teachers. Or that you're a teacher and you have a lot of students. It's kind of the same thing. And let's say that you have a student who is not learning. Well, you've got some choices, and the main choice is to try to, the main thing is to try to help the student learn. Or if you're a principal or the head of the school and you've got a teacher that's not being successful in teaching, how do you help that teacher become more successful in teaching? And that's, again, a very personal and difficult challenge. But it starts with sitting down with the person, listening to them, showing empathy, trying to understand what their challenges are, strengths and weaknesses, and helping bring resources to that person so that they can become successful. And then if for some reason, like in a leadership role, it's not possible to help that person become successful, then you have to make really difficult choices, such as move that person to a new job or get someone else to come and take over that responsibility. And sometimes that means that you fire somebody, that you let them go. They lose their job and they have to go find another job. Well, I'll tell you, to finish this story, we spent, when I was at Snow College, and I've told you briefly about this little story about the commercial art program, we had several other programs that were just like this. And so I met with all of the faculty members and told them that I was going to evaluate them on whether they could get people into careers. That was their job. Their main job was to train people so that they can go get a nice job. And that if they couldn't show that they had done that, then their program might be closed. So I gave them notice that that's the way they would be evaluated, so that that was fair for them. And I gave them time to try to fix it. And I offered to help them in any way that I could help them. And that was the challenge. And then a year later, I told them the same thing again and said, I hope that you're doing okay on this. I want to be helpful to you. And then another year went by. And as it turns out, some of them were trying hard and some of them weren't trying at all. And I had then a really difficult decision to make because they just weren't going to be successful. So I gathered together a group. I wasn't going to make the decision on my own. I thought it was important to let others have input. And so I brought in a group of people that I respected and trusted, that were thought highly of in the community, and said, help me make a decision on all these programs. And we gathered every piece of information that we could possibly gather, all of the data that we could, and said, how important is this job for the region? And what I mean by that is let's say, for example, commercial art. How important is a commercial artist in this region? And when I say commercial art, I hope you know what I mean by that. A commercial artist is a person, not someone who paints paintings and sells them to hang on the wall. A commercial artist is someone who does work on the internet, web design, or flyers, or pamphlets, publications, those kinds of things. If you're a business, you would hire a commercial artist to help you put together all of your marketing materials and those kinds of things. So I invited, we gathered all the data that we could about how important commercial art was. And if it was a really important job, then we would give more help to try to get them going. But we gathered all the data we could about the job, how many new jobs there might be, how important it was to the region, what the pay was, what the history was of the students who had graduated from the program, where they had gone, what their opportunities were, how hard the teachers worked. We just gathered all the information that was possible to gather. And then we brought in a group of people to help us analyze all that data to make a decision. And at the end of the day, our decision was to close 5 programs. That meant that 5 faculty members, actually more than that, because some of the programs had 2 or 3 faculty members working in the program, but we were going to close those and let them go. This was a really difficult experience for me because I didn't like firing people. But they had had several years' warning. I had offered to help them. We had gathered the data. We had gotten as much input as we possibly could get from others and then made a decision. And that felt like a fair way to do it. One of the challenges that leadership has is that sometimes leaders want everyone to love them. Sometimes leaders want everyone to like them and to, we all want people to like us. What I found is that in making really difficult decisions that required us to maybe even fire somebody from a job, while maybe they don't like us or don't love us, don't want those kinds of feelings for us, but by making good decisions and working hard, gathering information, consulting, talking with other people before making decisions, you get respect as a leader. And respect as a leader is more important than being loved or liked as a leader. Because we can have confidence in somebody that we can respect. I've known a lot of people in leadership positions who just struggle to make hard decisions. And the more they struggle, the more the organization struggles, and the less respect people have for that person. And then people are less likely to want to follow. So I think that's one example of a difficult decision I had to make as a leader. And at the end, I thought that perhaps I would make so many people mad at me that it might create some problems for me. But as it turned out, as I alluded to, people respected me more, even though they weren't always so happy. So I think that that's one of the real keys, is to gather information, involve others in coming to decisions, and then making hard decisions. That's just part of being a leader. How do personal experiences help become a good leader? What's nice is that as we spend time as a leader doing our very best job, we continue to develop our skills, and we get more and more practiced, and we become better at it. And we find ways to do it more kindly. Let me go back. Speaking of doing it kindly, let me go back to this story about the commercial art program at Snow College. As the president of the school, I could have made the decision about what programs to close, and then I could have told someone else to go and communicate to the faculty that their job was gone. But I didn't do that. What I chose to do was to meet with each person individually myself. And by sitting down with them myself and saying, this was my decision, it wasn't somebody else's, I got a lot of input, this is how I made the decision, I want you to understand that clearly. I want you to know that I was as fair as I could possibly be, but you had warnings for these years, and these are the issues that we've got. Now you tell me what I can do to help you. That was really meaningful for those people, because they had a clear understanding of why I did it, and they also knew that I wanted to help them, that I wasn't just throwing them out. And so I'd ask them, what are your challenges? What kind of things can I do to help? And some of them had a variety of things. Because they were employees, there were certain benefits for them and their family. And because I was meeting with them, I could accommodate some of those concerns. Some of them had financial challenges, and I was able to accommodate that. We're going to let you go today. You don't have to come to work tomorrow, but we'll pay your salary for another 6 or 7 months or whatever amount of time. We'll keep your health insurance going, those kinds of things, until you can get back on your feet and find another job. So I think that that's an important part of it, is to be strong enough to communicate the decisions yourself, but kind enough that you can listen and gather, genuinely try to help the people out that you're letting go. Another question is, how do you build a positive culture? And I think that I can build on this last experience with this culture. A leader always makes, let me give you a story. So when I was hired in my current job, as president of Southern Utah University, someone came up to me and said, wow, you're just great. Everyone loves you. This is going to be awesome. And this is my first day, right? And I smiled and said, well, I haven't made any decisions yet. So of course everybody likes me today, but as soon as I make my first decision, then somebody might not like me anymore. So you can have a really positive culture on the first day, but every decision you make is a decision that one person likes and another person doesn't like. So how do you keep that culture positive? And I think the answer is partly in the story I just told you about Snow College, and that is people can accept difficult decisions. And you can have a positive culture in your organization if everyone knows that you are seriously trying to gather the best information you can, you invite other people to help you make your decisions, you make a decisive opinion at the end, and you're willing to explain that decision to others so that they have an understanding about how it is that you make your decisions. And then you reach out to the individuals who were adversely affected, the people who are impacted in a negative way by your decision, and ask them how you can help them personally through the transition. That's how you build a great culture. You cannot build a great culture by pleasing everyone. It's impossible to build a good culture in an organization if what you do is just be nice to everyone. You can imagine this as a teacher. If you give hard assignments to all of your students, and some of them work hard and some of them don't work hard, and you give everybody a good grade, that creates a horrible culture, because you're teaching everybody that their hard work doesn't matter, that it just doesn't matter because everyone will be treated the same. So if you're a leader of employees, the same principle applies. People need to feel rewarded for hard work, and they need to feel accountable. They need to feel responsible if they don't work hard. I had a person tell me when I was struggling over an employee that wasn't being successful. I had a person tell me that one of the responsibilities I had was to help people be happy and to be successful. And if they just simply weren't being successful, and if they weren't going to be successful, after all I have done to help them be successful, they just weren't, that employee knows that they're not successful, and they can't be happy in their job. And so my responsibility at that point is to help them find a different job. And that's part of what we do, is trying to help people be successful. And the same thing is true with your students, you know. If a person is getting poor grades, your job is to try to help them get good grades. But if they don't get good grades, if they don't work hard, then you have to give them a bad grade. By establishing these kinds of things, then everybody knows what you're doing, everybody understands the ground rules, everybody's treated fairly, and you create a culture of understanding with everyone else. Well, let's see. Good leaders that I have had. Probably as a young person, one of my best leaders was a guy named Verlin Simmons. And he was a youth leader of mine in scouting. I was a member of a scouting organization, youth organization, the Boy Scouts. And he was my scoutmaster. I was 12 years old. And in scouting at the time, we would learn things and go camping and just all kinds of life skills that a 12-year-old might want to learn. And the way Verlin taught me to be a good leader was that he would come to my home once a year and sit down with me and say, what are your goals for the year? What do you want to accomplish? He didn't tell me what my goals should be. He challenged me to make good goals, but he allowed me to make my own personal goals. If I made my goals not strong enough, you know, I wasn't reaching far enough, they weren't pushing me, then he would challenge me to make the goals better. But ultimately, he allowed me to create my own goals. That meant that I bought into the goals. These were goals that I cared about, and they were mine. And then he would create measures for success. I'm a 12-year-old at this time. And he would say, we have 5 activities that are big activities this year. And if this is your goal for the year, then let's break that goal down into smaller goals, and let's set some deadlines for all these small goals. And the first goal that you need to accomplish, or the first piece of this main goal, you need to accomplish it by this date, and if you don't accomplish it, then you can't go with us on an activity that's really fun. And then the second time, you need to accomplish a goal by this date, and if you accomplish it, then you can go on this really neat camping trip. But if you don't, you can't go. And he listed out all these goals for the whole year based on what I had decided my goals were going to be. And then he held me accountable for that. And if I didn't accomplish the goal, then I couldn't go on this fun activity that I wanted to go on. And by doing that, as a 12-year-old, I learned the value of setting goals, and I learned how a leader helps people set goals. Because it has to be your goal. You have to buy into it. But you might need to be challenged. So that's one really nice leadership trait I learned from a great leader of mine when I was a young kid. When I went to college, well, let me tell you a story in high school. So I had what I thought was not the best leader. I was on a debate team in high school, and we had a teacher that taught debate. He also taught language and taught debate. And he would tell us the kinds of things that we ought to do. He was good at teaching or talking about what we should do, but he wasn't very good at holding us accountable or challenging us or pushing us. And as a result of that, I never really became very good. I liked the debate coach, I thought he was a really great guy, but I didn't think he was a good leader because he didn't help me become successful. Sometimes as a leader, I think those two examples are interesting because in the one, I liked both of them. I really liked them both a lot. But the one forced me to reach my highest goals and held me accountable if I didn't. The other one encouraged me to do good things, but never held me accountable. So I don't think that was a good leadership person. When I got to college, I had a number of wonderful leaders. One of them was a vice president of the university, and for a period of time, because of the circumstances that I was in, he became my advisor. And he would take me to lunch every couple weeks. I think this is really an interesting piece of leadership, and I was learning from him about how to be a leader. But he would take me to lunch every couple weeks and just talk with me. He would learn about what was going on in my life, what were the important things that I was doing, both personally and for school and for work. And he would ask me about my goals. Anyway, it was a terrific time because I knew that he cared about me as a person. And I knew that he was trying to help motivate me to become a better person, and that he was always a resource to help me if I needed something. So I think that's another piece of leadership, is making sure that you're learning everything you can about the people that you're leading, so that they really know you care about them. Another thing that I would say about leadership is that it's important as a leader to not assume you know everything. A bad leader is someone who doesn't listen and doesn't get other information from people. So in all of the leadership roles that I've had, I've tried to make sure that everyone I worked with knew that they were free to give me ideas or suggestions. I wanted to make sure they knew that they should be comfortable to criticize me, to tell me they thought I was making a mistake. This is a difficult thing, particularly in some cultures, to be able to say to a leader, I disagree with you. But it's incredibly important to do, incredibly important. When I hire someone to work for me, I ask them a series of questions. And one of them is, are you willing to be absolutely loyal to me? And of course they say, yes, I will be loyal to you. And then I say to them, I want you to know what I mean by loyalty. Loyalty to me means that you will always be honest with me. That if I'm doing something that you think is a mistake, that you are loyal enough, that you care enough, that you're interested enough in my success, that you're willing to tell me that you think I'm making a mistake. That's super important. And it's a challenge because nobody wants to be told they're wrong. But you cannot be a successful leader. I don't believe it's possible to be a successful leader unless you're willing to take criticism and suggestions from people that you are leading. It's just absolutely important. It's not possible otherwise. So it might be difficult for me sometimes to tell a leader of mine that they're doing something wrong, but as a leader, I can make sure that those that work for me know that I want their opinions. And you do that through a variety of ways. You sit down and you ask them questions. You make sure that right up front they know this is important to you. If no one is ever criticizing you or telling you that they think your ideas aren't good, then you should say maybe they don't feel comfortable telling me these things. So you have to stop and say to someone that you're leading, please tell me what you think is not good about this idea. I love this idea, but you tell me if you think it's a good idea or not. And if they say it's a great idea, then you need to say, what about it might not be a good idea? Help me understand what we could do better. And you just practice those things. And eventually, you create a relationship of trust so that the people that work with you feel confident in telling you when you're doing something well and when you're not doing something well, when you're making a mistake. Super important. And I think that helps build this positive culture. Nobody actually likes a leader who never listens or cares about them. Well, let's see. What else have I got here? How does a leader balance multiple responsibilities? That's super hard, but you have to prioritize and just figure out what responsibilities will have the greatest impact and do those first. And then you always have to be patient because there's always interruptions. I get caught up sometimes between the task-oriented part of my job and the personal part of my job. That I want to get my tasks done. I want to get all my emails caught up. I want to get all these things taken care of. And if I spend all my time doing those things, then I never spend time just motivating and working with other people. And so I have to try to balance those things. Because, as we've mentioned, I can accomplish more if I can motivate other people to do more. Rather than me sit in my office and work really hard and not spend time with the people I lead. Let's see. What personal experiences, how do personal experiences help me become a leader? Well, one of the most important qualities, I think, in a leader is to be humble. And when I use the word humble, I mean teachable. And the more experiences I have, the more I realize that I do good things and I do things not so well. That sometimes I succeed and sometimes I fail. And the more I allow myself to fail in certain things, the more I get empathy or understanding of other people when they make mistakes as well. I actually think that nobody wants to work for a perfect person because it's a little bit uncomfortable. Everybody wants to work for a human, for somebody that can make mistakes but is warm and engaging and helpful and always seeking input. But the more experiences I have, the more confidence I develop. And the more confidence I have, the more willing I am to admit my mistakes. And the more willing I am to seek other people's input. How do we face an unexpected setback? Sometimes when you're leading, you run into a roadblock or some problem that you can't work around. And how do you deal with that? Well, I think the best thing usually is to just pause and take some time to think it through. Always make sure you don't blame somebody else. Always try to figure out what it is that you as the leader could have done better. If the people you're leading aren't being successful, then it's partly your responsibility as the leader because you haven't helped them become successful. So when I get to an unexpected setback, my first reaction is, what could I have done better? Not what mistake did somebody else make. That's a super important way to begin that. And then gather the team together, the group that's working together. If you're a leader, you've got a team. And you're working on a project and you have a setback. And you sit down with them and say, okay, this is where we are. We're having some challenges. what can we do better? And instead of saying, you did this wrong and you did this wrong, in your group meeting, start out by saying, I think I could have done this better. And if the leader starts out by saying, I think I could have done this better, then everyone else is free to say that they could have done something better too. And that's part of creating this great culture in an organization where everybody supports everybody else. How do I think outside of the box? How do I think of new ideas to complete a task or a goal? How do we best do that? I think the answer to that is that we have to be around other people. We have to invite other people to give us suggestions. So if I'm going to put together a team of people that we work together with, I want them to be different. I want them to think differently. If we all think the same, we're never going to get outside of the box. We're never going to come up with new ideas. It's going to be more difficult to come up with new ideas. So that's one of the values of having diversity. Different kinds of people with different backgrounds that think differently, working together. A lot of the good ideas that a leader comes up with, most of my good ideas, are inspired by somebody else, something that somebody else suggested to me. How do we persuade people to do what we want them to do? The answer to that question is we need to get them to want to do it. People might grudgingly, they might do what you want them to do for a while, but it's not going to be a good situation unless they want to do it. So we have to sit down with each individual and find out what motivates that person and help them. You can't successfully force somebody to do something they don't want to do. They have to decide they want to do it. And so when you have a leadership role, you have a certain number of people you lead. It can't be more than the number of people that you can get to know personally, work with personally, motivate and inspire them. How do I stay organized? That's always kind of hard for me, actually. Sometimes I'm extremely organized and feel great, and sometimes things just keep coming and I get too much going and I feel very unorganized. So that's something I'm still working on. But it's partly delegating tasks to others, having other people help you, and keeping priorities right, and trying to find some way to manage your time, to keep lists and organize your day. But as you know, my dad was the leader of a project in his work once, and he said, now that I've become the leader, I can't get anything done because everyone's coming to me asking me questions. And I'm spending my whole day answering questions and I'm not getting my work done. And I think about that a lot because that seems like my life, is that I can say I've got to get 2 or 3 things done today and I don't get any of them done because I've spent my whole day helping other people get their things done. So sometimes you have to create space. You know, you have to just block out some time or do whatever you want. Everything, but you have to do whatever you can. But it's a challenge, and I wish that I had a better answer for that. How do you take care of yourself so you don't burn out? How do I manage my time? The job that I have is an all-consuming job. There is almost no time that I'm not thinking about it or doing something with it. I work during the day, I work in the evening. Every day I'm always the president of the school wherever I go. And how do I keep myself from getting burned out? I don't know for sure. I think I just work my hardest and find ways to make my job meaningful to me, and make sure that I'm surrounding myself with people who lift me up, who are encouraging and positive, And then I try to take some time to get good exercise, eat well, and sleep well. So that's probably the keys for me, is to sleep and eat healthy and get exercise. That's the best thing that I've got. Plus, my family is a great support to me. What advice would I give to education majors? So you're all students studying to become teachers. What advice would I give to you? And maybe this is the end of what I have to present. My advice to you would be to always remember the importance of what you're doing. To remember that what your job is one of the most important jobs that there is in the entire world. Your job is helping other people become successful. And there isn't anything better than that. You're teaching individuals to become better people, and those people will make communities better and stronger, and they'll make their businesses or their organizations stronger. And so as a teacher, you can make the whole world better, one person at a time, one student at a time. And if you can remember how important it is that you elevate and lift and inspire and teach and help individuals become successful, I think you'll always find your job as a teacher rewarding. It's very, very meaningful. I wish you the very best of luck. I hope that you love being a teacher, and I hope that every single student in your class you see as an opportunity for you to make a difference in that person's life. And if they're not doing well, figure out how you can help them be more successful by being a better leader and a better role model for them. I wish you the very best of luck. Thank you so much. And hopefully, when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, I'll have a chance to meet you sometime with Johnny O. He's taken me to Korea a few times, and of course we've had Korean students here, so maybe one day, but I wish you all the very, very best. Thank you.